Okay. All right. How's everybody doing? Good. All right. So really, I think only one thing on the roster from the standpoint of practice. Carry on will be out of practice today, so get a chance to see him a little bit today, work him back in. Obviously take our time as far as that's concerned, get him back out there and kind of, get him playing football again. So excited to have that opportunity to do that. Other than that, we're into Minnesota, trying to dive into this team and learn what they are and who they are. Really, since last time we played them, there's definitely some changes. Thielen being the big one on offense hasn't been out there, but they've definitely filled in those spots with Irv Smith and some of the different packages that they're running. You can see a lot more of the stretch run game is still obviously the number one thing that they do really, really well, and they got some great players in the backfield to do that, and certainly on the defensive part of it, that team's playing at a very high level on defense. They do a good job with their coverages, their coverage disguises, and they got some great players in the front. Those guys have been playing together for a long time, and I think you really see that through the communication and through some of the things that they're doing, from the standpoint of disguise, and they're able to kind of exchange rushes and do some things on the field that are pretty impressive. So big challenge in front of us. They're a really good team, so we got a lot of work to do this week. What do we got?
What do you think about the way Cousins has played this year? It looks like he's kind of leveled out at a pretty high level too, just a consistent football player.
Yeah, I mean, consistency would be the biggest thing, from that standpoint. And I would say, they're doing a great job of calling plays that fit right into kind of, his strong points. Obviously, the run game sets up a lot of the play action and the move the pocket sort of plays that they're able to kind of get him out there, get him in space, and they have great skill players. They have a lot of speed, and he's got a strong arm, so he can get the ball downfield to those guys, and you see those dynamic plays every single week. And I just think he's doing a really good job. They're doing a great job of preparing him every single game and put him in situations where he can make those plays, and those guys are kind of rallying around it. So it's really, I think it's they're operating at a high level.
Things with Carry-On. Obviously, we've seen him on the field plenty, but because he's been hurt, a lot of last year and this time here this year, do you need to see him on the field? How valuable would it be for him to get more game reps, A, and then B, are him and Scarborough different enough that they can play off each other, sort of their styles, contrasting styles for the backfield?
I think it's always important to play football and practice football and do everything you can as much as possible, especially if you're a young player and especially if you're a player that's missed some time. I think it's good. It's great for, to get back out there and kind of have that opportunity to get back to work. So why we have them? Because there's a lot of, a lot of time during the season where we don't. So, we got a great opportunity in front of us to get better at football, and certainly from Carry-On standpoint, that'd be great for him to do that. So we'll take full advantage of that as much as we can. And, look, I think, in the run game and in the backfield, you need to have talented players back there, and it's more than just kind of one guy for the job. I think a lot of teams, and certainly us, we'll use multiple backs. We've used multiple backs, and I think that's a good thing to have, and puts a lot of pressure on the defense to really try to understand who's in the game from that standpoint. So, we always try to have as many good football players as we can.
How vital will that be to know where he's at for next year and what you have in your backfield as far as the future goes, just to see him on the field again?
I think it's just vital for right now. Where we are next year, no one has any idea. So I think right now for us, it's what does he look like today? What does he look like tomorrow? What does it look like next week? And we'll go from there. So I think that's what's important for the team and for Carry-On. And, again, like I said, that practice opportunity is so important. No matter when it pays off, it doesn't really matter. But anytime you can get out in the field and have those opportunities, it's important.
This starts a 3-week clock for him, correct? So he could come back as early as the Denver games.
Yeah, I believe it's like the last 2 or whatever that is. Yep, something along those lines. There's the exact dates, from the time of activation and all that stuff. Yep.
Matt, the Vikings have had the same core guys on defense for many years now. How does that kind of help what Zimmer's able to do? And is there some challenges to keep things fresh or keep things different for offensive game plans and whatnot?
Yeah, I would say kind of all of that is absolutely correct. When you have guys that have played together for a long time in the same system, there's little things that grow on the field from that standpoint, and little nuances that you see that really make things a lot more complex for offenses to try to defend against. They've got a great clip. It's probably one of my favorite clips of Kendricks and Barr when you watch the tape. I believe it's the Dallas game. They're both walked up into the B gaps. The tackles are in the A gaps. And you can see the offensive linemen, they're calling out protections, and they're pointing to the slide. And it's just subtle little things that you catch on film. One guy points to himself like, hey, I'm going on this one. And then, the offensive line changes the protection, and then they kind of look at each other, and they're switching who's blitzing on the next play. And then Dak comes up, and he changes the protection entirely. And they just kind of look back at each other, and they're just just switching back and forth between which guy's going based on the protection and how they're attacking. That sort of stuff, those subtleties without huge amounts of communication, that takes a while to build that kind of trust, that confidence, things like that. And certainly those two guys have been playing at a high level together for a long time. So those things are really impressive when you watch on tape. And I think from the standpoint of certainly defense, the cohesiveness of a defense, and when guys play on the same unit for a long time, a lot of defense is playing off of each other from that standpoint, because not everything really fits exactly how it's drawn up or exactly how it's kind of diagrammed. So in some cases, you really kind of got to know the strengths and the weaknesses of the guys playing next to you, and you may know that, hey, this guy right here, he's gonna have this chance, he's gonna have this opportunity to make this play, and he may take that shot, and I'm gonna play off him over here because you're just used to it at that point. It really becomes second nature. I think the other part of it that's really interesting, and I think maybe we've talked about this before, is just communication in general, and how when you've worked with guys for a long time, you kind of you can hear their voice in any crowd, at any decibel, at any level, which obviously defensively communication is the biggest thing. It's critical for us. And, those guys, I know that with that sort of communication, both verbal and nonverbal, they're able to kind of get in good position, use the disguises, and kind of trust each other to be there. So I think it's a huge advantage from that standpoint.
How do you combat that when they just wink, nod, and
Yeah, it's difficult. We have a couple things that we try to do to combat that, but then they layer on top of what they already do from that standpoint. So I think the first foremost, when you play great defenses or great teams, you better have really good fundamentals and better be really structurally sound. Otherwise, they're going to exploit that weakness, maybe that hole or that space that you're leaving there. They're going to see it and take advantage of it pretty quick.
So I know you try not to put too much importance on one game over another, but you're 0-4 within the division this year, and you've always sort of held those division games up as being vitally important for this team. As you're building this thing and even looking at next year, like how much do you need to perform well in this game, and maybe even that game against Green Bay at the end of the year?
I mean, I think for all of us, we know how important the division is. That's the first and foremost. But within each week, that game is the most important. So, it's a critical game because it's our next game. That's certainly how we approach it. And, things for next year always change. Like, it doesn't really, you can't predict what's going to happen as far as next year's concerned from your team to other teams and across the league. So what's most important for us is this week. Bless you.
Have you been surprised of Kyle Rudolph kind of battling through injuries and coming back and having such a big bounce back here and just the key plays he's made, key times for them?
Yeah, great observation. I'm not surprised because he's a really good player, but I would say you can see how his role is now really grown from that. I think he took that opportunity earlier in the year where maybe he was doing some other jobs that he hasn't done in previous seasons, and he took that time to really grow in those roles and get better in those roles. And then on top of it, now kind of back to where he normally is in the passing game, I think he's actually made himself a better player overall. I think in general, all of that has just turned him into a guy that's critically important to their offense and someone that you can really see the quarterback trust, the system is built around, the tight ends specifically. Those are key components of this type of offense, and I think Rudolph is, he's doing a great job. He's really come a long way.
I don't know if you saw Wilbur Quinn's comments today, but he said, that there was essentially he didn't know if you guys could fight out of the rut you're in because maybe the love for your style isn't there in the locker room. Just wanted to get your response to that.
I didn't see any of that. I think our guys fight really hard. I think they fight really hard. I don't think there's any question about that whatsoever. So I really appreciate this group. I appreciate how hard they work. I think everybody that's in the building right now knows those guys are engaged. They're working, as hard as they can to get better. And we're a few plays away from really, being a lot different right now. But the fact is, we got to make those plays. That's really the bottom line. And whether we talk about all the time, it's coaching or playing. We're just going to keep fighting through all that and get better and break through that as soon as we can. So big challenge for us with Minnesota, and we'll attack it the best we can. They got a good team.
What have you seen from their other tight end, Irv Smith?
Irv, yeah.
They're different types of guys there that seem to play off each other pretty well.
They do, and Conklin's been in there quite a bit too, so they're mixing in the 13 personnel with the third tight end and stuff. Irv is, I think like I said before, someone we really studied coming out, especially coming out of Alabama and knowing the ties that I have and we have down there with that organization. I think he's really just done a great job of learning the routes and learning the nuances of man coverage in the NFL. A little bit different than maybe college and what you saw kind of coming out. I think his top of the route movement in how he's able to kind of create separation and leverage from the man-to-man coverage that he's seeing. A lot of safety, a lot of linebacker coverage that's a little bit different than what he saw before. I think he's doing a great job of it, and I think they're putting him in good positions too. You know, they run a lot of the over routes and the sail complements with that, the 3-level patterns on the outside, and he's doing a great job of finding that space in both the zones and then recognizing the leverage of the man coverage and beating that. So that's usually a pretty big part of kind of your first year as a skill player in the NFL. I think he's doing a good job with that. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep.